Good morning. It's Friday, January 3rd, 2025. So we're in the
Mhm.
new year. Um, we've already sort of done pleasantries off camera, but I'll still say good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. And as per always, what have you been working on? I mean, did you take some time off?
I have taken, well, I took a break from teaching, uh, but I was writing.
Hmm.
And so I finished proofing the Triple Design Matrix book three books that I had written with Ra and did a commentary on. And those are at the publisher. They should be done. That book should be done, I think, by the end of January and released. Uh, it's an interesting book for the human design community because in it, Ra talks a lot about the work that we were doing with the triple design matrix, which was the 64 gate, the solar dream rave, and the lunar dream rave. At the time, we didn't have the emotional world or the physical world, but I was already using the what I was calling the triple design matrix as a way of deepening our understanding of how people functioned. And in the book, Ra talks a lot about the importance of that, that you can't just use the human design matrix because consciousness goes beyond that world, so to speak. And that if somebody changes in their matrix, you need to account for that. So it'll be, I think, a very interesting book for the human design community.
Mhm.
Um, so I finished proofing that, and then I got busy writing the 25th Path of Intelligence on the Tree of Life, which is the path of probation or trial. And it's rather important because most people get stuck in emotional reactions and the mental waking life and don't stay anchored in their spiritual core and their spiritual knowing. So that was a rather intense paper to write. Um, and I think in the future I will do it a little bit differently than I've been doing it. So I'll
Hmm.
talk to my classes about that this week. Um, and then I've been working on the other books, and my I've been busy with clients and with podcasts and with all of that and with family. My granddaughter was in town from college, which was really nice. And uh, it's very nice to see how well adjusted she is. Uh, she's alone in Chicago at University of Illinois, and it's my old stomping ground.
Mhm.
She went to the Apple store yesterday because she dropped her phone. So she got back to Illinois, to Chicago in the morning, and she went to the Apple store in the afternoon. And I said to her last night, "Where is the Apple store?" And she said, "It's Lake Street and Michigan Avenue." Well, my office was 180 North Michigan.
Hmm.
So I loved Chicago in some ways. It's a great city in terms of functionality. Small enough that you could go from the south side where the University of Chicago is to downtown in 15, 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And then when I lived in the near north side, I could get to my office in 10 minutes. And so it's interesting to me that she's living right where I did my internship. And now it's getting cold there.
Hmm.
So I heard that last night There was the fire alarm went off at 3:15 in the morning, and everybody had to stay in the lobby of the building because it was too cold to walk outside.
Wow.
So it's interesting.
She's not from
Um,
Chicago. Is she from a big city or a small city? Like, was this a big
my
change?
granddaughter,
Yeah.
she grew up in Los Angeles area.
Okay. So she can handle a big city.
Um, and she wanted to go to a city that was a big city that had four seasons and got cold. I'm not sure how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
Chicago in February often got to minus 48.
Yeah. I grew up in Toronto and I don't miss that at all. So, I want to circle back to the 25th path and the word probation. And you also mentioned you're going to deliver it a bit differently. I'd be curious to know, get a hint at that. Um, but it's strange. Like I've been working with you and talking with you every week. So I've had advance. I don't know. It's already on your mind as we're talking. So usually when the class comes, it's still mostly over my head half the time. But I come somehow already am integrating it. Like I'm hearing what you're saying and it's landing in its own way. Um, that's been very interesting because I think the first three or four paths, it definitely, as my understanding is, it's around the root, the sacral, the lower energies, right? Lower energies that you can get stuck in, that can misguide you emotionally. And that really has been my adventure the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, has really just been, I don't use the word translating, maybe you did, but like, recognizing an emotion or a fear and kind of observing it real time. Like I never was never capable of that before. Well, maybe I was capable of it, but I was unaware. Now I'm like hyper attuned. And lately, when I do it for myself, which each time it's still like takes great effort to just do some qigong, for example. Like for whatever reason, I'll be like, I feel stuck. I'm not moving. Oh, I should do some of that. And I won't. I will quite literally avoid it for 4 or 5 hours. And then eventually be like, oh, enough's enough. Go do it. 2, 3 minutes and I feel better. So
Mhm.
there's like something that like a disconnect where it's like I know it's good for me. I know it'll help. And it's just such um quicksand almost, like just something holding me down. So I feel like a lot of that has been lifting lately. Um, and I have a new sensation now in my spine. I actually feel very open and flexible there. Okay, with a lot of this has come flexibility because I'm
Mhm.
really grinding and pushing and like there's a physical thing going on that I'm exploring. Um, but lately there's a point now, like I feel so in touch with my body that there's like a point in the middle of my spine, uh, towards the bottom, but like it feels almost like a cyst stuck right in my spine. Like I could feel like the vertebrae or whatever's stuck. And I'm almost afraid to work on it because it feels like when it pops, it's going to be too much. Like there's something very, like if I twist, I can feel like this. Ooh, I don't know if I want to twist that a little bit more. Um, it's never really stopped me before. So I think I'm just going to power through. And my little car buffer has been helping a lot. Um, but there's something physical about that. There's some sort of bottleneck in my spine that kind of feels like it's just above what I imagine those paths exist. So I think that's like my brain is coming to this like this. I'm really curious about this 25th path and like where does that live? Does that live in an energy center? Does that live? Um,
Yes, it lives in the sacral center.
okay. Hmm. Yeah, I would say this feels kind of below where I imagine the solar plexus is. So it does kind of feel like there's a gap between those two, or like there's something there. Um, and I'll just say this because it's come on my radar a few times, but there's the poles of the Earth, and I've seen pictures of it, and it's kind of like a magnetic thing. But I've also seen it drawn on the human body, almost like there's an upper pole and a bottom pole, and it feels like that's where that exists. Um, and sometimes I feel like I sound crazy saying that, but this is the right place to say it because there's something going on there. So yeah, it's like there's something's stuck. Um, it hurts. It scares me that it hurts a bit to kind of extend it, even though I'm not really doing a lot. Like I'm not flipping myself in half or something. It's really pretty tender motion, but I'm almost afraid to push it. And I don't know if that's a mental block, if it's a concern that I'm going to open up too much, because there's just been so many things going on for me that have been overwhelming, tapping into the energy that, you
What you're describing is Kundalini,
know.
and it doesn't need to rise up the spine. And yes, if you're not ready, it can cause symptoms and discomfort and symptomatology.
What was that last word?
Symptoms,
Oh, symptomatology.
physical symptoms.
Mm. Hmm. So we've talked about Kundalini quite a bit. Sorry to eat too. I'm just really hungry. Realized last minute. I'll just finish up. Does one have a Kundalini experience always, and they're light, or is it a blast? Can you have many?
Can have many.
Okay, yeah, because like at least around here, everybody's got a Kundalini yoga class or a Kundalini this or a Kundalini that, and
Doesn't mean that the people are having Kundalini experiences.
yeah, I think that's part of my question, right? It's almost like any word or thing kind of gets taken and then stretched, and its meaning gets stretched. Seems to me a Kundalini experience is some sort of connection from the root to effectively the brain stem or something. It's a physical sensation that also comes with some sort of awareness, knowing, and usually seems to almost turn on synapses, or like there's a physical part and a mental part.
It's a spiritual experience.
Okay.
It's not mental. The mental world is not involved in it except registering what's happened. But the experience itself is a physical, spiritual experience. And then you can superimpose the emotional and mental upon it because the observer is going to observe what you're going through. But it can be at any level. It doesn't necessarily rise up the spine and come out the crown. Sometimes it gets stuck and it can be uncomfortable, can be painful. Um, it can be unconscious
Oh, what do you mean by that? How can it be unconscious?
because people can be having experiences and they dismiss them and don't respond to them.
Mm, like a physical experience, a physical spiritual experience.
Oh, my back hurts. Oh, my.
Mm,
And you put a heating pad or you go to the chiropractor and you stop it.
mm. So how do you distinguish between a back pain and a Kundalini experience?
You don't.
Mm. Okay. Hmm. So,
Um, or you let it go, right? I mean, how do we know? Um, you know when you know, and you know inside yourself when you can handle something and when you can't.
mm. I can handle a lot, and this is just a minor nuisance, really.
Well, yes and no, Sean. Um, we don't know if you could handle it or not. Uh, we don't know because you're stopping it for some reason. You're saying it feels like something's stuck or blocked.
Hmm.
And if you were to let it, if you were to push it and open the door, you don't know that you'd want to handle the consequences of it.
Mm.
It's not to be taken lightly. Um, every Kundalini, major Kundalini experience I've had has changed my life.
Hmm.
And if you don't want your life uprooted, sometimes you temper it down.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting. Today's cosmic guidance kind of was implying to lay low and let things simmer. And I do kind of feel like I'm uh I'm pushing too hard, not accomplishing anything, but just mentally pushing too hard. So it's quite agonizing to
What are you pushing with on?
uh it's all in my head. I'm not writing any of it down, despite everybody's suggestions. Yeah, it's I've got a dozen things that I'd love to do, and I'm struggling with which one I'm most excited about. And also wrestling with, can I do four of these things simultaneously? Can I do 10 of them? Should I only do one? So I'm always reminded about, you talk about letting things sit for a week and make sure you're spiritually aligned with it. I'm aligned with all these things, but some of them I'm not convinced I have the energy to go through with it, or I can almost see how much effort it would take to get to collaborate with others to pull it off. Like I can't do it myself. And I know in the past I have gotten people worked up into excited about doing something. And then when I ran out of steam, it was almost like everybody was let down. Ever seen the movie? Just immediately thought of Forrest Gump. Um, and he goes running for like 3 years, like after his girlfriend then wife died, he just decides to go running. No, 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 she was alive still. Anyways, he went running for like 3 years. All of a sudden, all these people started following him. And why are you running? And he just said, I don't know. And for some reason, everyone was just amazed. And so they started following him, running back across the country. And then one day, he just kind of was like running in the fields, and he was like, "Well, I'm tired now. I think I'll go home." And he just turned around and started and all these people that were like followers following him, and then he just tapped out. And then they were just all like couldn't believe that like they thought they were running for some purpose, and he just didn't have a purpose anymore, and so or that wasn't his purpose, and he went home. It comes to mind like it's kind of like I can get. Marvin had said to me, I can be very influential, and that can be dangerous for me if I'm not doing what I love, because then there's consequences and fallout.
Well, so it's time for you to settle on what you love doing
Hmm.
and do it.
I think I'm kind of doing it. It's hard every day to get up and prove on paper it's going to work out, but I mean, I pretty much get up every day on my terms. Um, One of the things I've really started to zero in on is I got to move my body every day. So if it's pickleball one day or drumming another. Um, Pickleball's easy if I could find a court and there's people to play with. I leave it fired up. Generally overexert myself and I'm exhausted afterwards. And so then I crash. And so I have to like manage that input output of energy. The drumming thing isn't going very far other than every Sunday there's a jam that I go, you know, to for 4 hours to play for 15 minutes whenever my spot comes up. So I'm just kind of waiting for an opportunity to play. And that part is not filling my cup. The drumming, yes. The performing, absolutely yes. The situation is
You mean
temporary.
the 15 minutes is yes?
Yeah, yeah. Like I enjoy that. But, kind of waiting, like I want to create my own gigs or have my own gig, not just arrive and have someone else arbitrarily decide that, okay, Sean, you're up with these people. I mean,
Mhm.
there's elements of that that I absolutely love. It is a jam where I'm not sure who I'm going to be on stage with. I don't know what we're going to play. So it's as chaotic as it can be. Um, and there's a pressure on me because there's 120, 150 people there. So you can't just, it's not a jam in someone's basement. It's like, oh, you're on. And man, that fuels me. Like it just fills my cup. Um, yeah, so I need to find a way to recreate that. I had a vehicle that kind of did that before, but it's not quite right. So I think that's what I'm actually fine tuning.
Do
Meeting
you
an
need other people in order to drum?
no, yeah, I do because I love to perform. I think I love to drum, but I more enjoy performing while drumming. There's something about sharing it with someone, I think. I think I like to, yeah, I like to be on the spot. If I'm drumming by myself, I can make mistakes, nobody knows. It's my own little internal dialogue. Um, but it doesn't seem to, it's not enough. I even record every performance that I do there. I get my camera off to the side, and I go home and watch it later. And it's because I'm like reliving the moment, like, and I can remember what I'm thinking when I do it. Like, there's one spot where this fella Phil, he's an amazing drummer, and it's his house kit, and he was watching off to the side, and you can actually see me notice him off camera, and then I basically stopped playing. But in my head, it was like, oh, I got to show off for Phil, right? And instead, I like froze for about half a second. I picked it up. Nobody besides him noticed, and he's the last person in the world I wanted to see it. See me do that. But yeah, there's something about performing that I love. Performing on the drums, and it's not satisfying enough to do it on a video, like stream it or something. There's no feedback with that. So I find myself circling back to that a lot. I remember I'm just rambling here, sorry, but I remember being in Hawaii uh, 3 years ago, and we were at a restaurant owned by Mick Fleetwood, the drummer for Fleetwood Mac. And unfortunately, that restaurant burned down during the fires there. But when I was there, I was just in awe that this person had created a career where he would travel and drum, but he also had a home base. Like he had a restaurant in his home city, and his drum set was set up permanently in the middle of it. Like to me, that was like, oh, that's what I want. I want to just be able to walk in, play on my kit for people and share the experience. And if I had the funds, I would just build it and know I'd eventually make it work. I could make it work,
What
but
would it take for you to have the funds?
reversing our current financial situation, shedding even more of the things that aren't serving us but are difficult to let go of. Um,
If they're not serving you, what makes it difficult to let go of them?
Guilt, shame, all the usual stuff that I pretty much worked through now. It's just now the pain of, like one of them is a business that was thriving and it's just not now. And I'm not there. So it's really just a burden, a worry every month of how it might turn out. And there'd be pain to just turn it off and accept the debts that it has and be like, well, I'll find another way to pay for those. It's not really in a position where someone would want to buy it because it does look like the owner of the business hasn't been home for 3 years. right? So on paper, the finances don't look, it's got good people, it's got good bones, it's got 20 years of goodwill in the city, but it's not where I want to be. And so
So
there's
why hold on to it?
well, there's 7 people working there that,
That you pay
yeah,
and you go in the hole on every month?
uh, not every month, but many months. Yeah, I know,
Well, if you don't love it, what are you doing?
sacrificing. Yeah.
And being upset with yourself that you are.
Mhm. Yeah. And for some,
So, Sean, you can't go through the 25th path with that attitude.
okay, well, thank you for that. So explain probation then, because that's where we started. And because that's the word for that path, or is that your word for the path,
No,
or
it's the word trial or probation.
hmm,
It means that until you are consistently turning your life over to a higher spirit and higher self and making your choices based on that, not on any of the mental world constraints, you can't progress.
well, it is pretty much that obvious with a couple of things. It's the it's so frustrating because I sense that people will be hurt and will have to scramble and you know fix their situation because they won't have a job. Um, but I've already experienced the alternative, which is during COVID, keeping this thing running and paying people instead of enjoying my life. And then they still fucked off and took a job somewhere else the second they got more money, right? So like every good person that's worked for me is always still taking care of themselves first, and I didn't. And but
And
now it's
aren't,
ill. Sorry.
and are not.
Hmm. It's not like I don't recognize it or see it. It's there's something I just can't do it. Um, or
Well,
won't.
Sean, you have to make a decision as to whether you're going to make that business profitable in order to stay in it or whether you're going to let it go. And you haven't made a decision. You're
Mhm,
letting it go, but you're not wanting to accept that you want to let it go.
mhm.
And so it can't be successful because you're not feeding it energy to make it successful.
Yeah. Yeah, the only energy I'm feeding it is currency, like money. And that's not helping. Yeah. Yeah.
You've already left that business.
Mhm.
So it's like wasting your resources.
Mhm. Yeah, Wendy and I kind of came to the conclusion the other day that it's time to do something about it. We just have to sit down and do it. Yeah. Okay.
Now's the time to do it.
Hmm. Now, why do you say that? I mean, is it always the time to do it? So, because I want to pick up from our conversation from last week too. Um, I love how you um state that you can manifest anything in 3 months. And I've worked through that, and I probably shared this with you that I part of me initially heard it as kind of like black or white, like today's the day I'm starting, and in 3 months there will be. And that didn't last very long. That was like 3, 4 hours, I'm sure. But then it was like, oh, hang on a second. Now every day is the start of a 3 month new cycle. So I have tons of confidence that there's a lot of things that I'm doing that those 3 months, like there's constant improvement. But yeah, there is a few things that just, the second I make these decisions and actually do something about them, there'll be 3 months from that, but that'll just be that, the pain of that will be behind me. Mm. Yeah, it's really obvious when it's put that way. Hmm. Hmm.
But you're going through the exact dilemma that humans go through as they ascend to a point of self-actualization, which is in living in the mental world. To the degree we compromise and have learned to compromise who we are and what we need and what resonates with us, we do not manifest our true self.
Hmm.
And, there's no system in the world that can do it for us. And something like human design, which says, oh, you're this or you're that, or you're you're a manifestor or you're a manifesting generator or a projector, those are just terms. And they limit people. Um, we're all here as light energy beings capable of unbelievable things.
Hmm.
You look at somebody like Elon Musk, who went against all tradition and all thinking and created companies thinking outside the box. So we are not limited, except to the degree we are limited by our thinking. And at some point, it takes courage to do it differently.
Hmm.
And it always takes courage to do it, to do a new action.
Yeah, and I've been experiencing that real time quite a bit. Not asserting myself, but certainly just, when I know, when I know. Um, and I feel it physically from people quite a bit, and it's always pickleball, but where you're just like, no, that's not what happened right there. I know it's not, and feeling that abrasive, like, this person has always steamrolled their way through certain things, and I'm the person to go, no, that's not actually what happened, and then willing to like hold my ground. Yeah, and so it's 3 seconds. Like it's not like a big argument, but how initially uncomfortable it was to just do that. And lately, that part's not hard at all. You know,
Well, then using an example like that as your motivation for changing your business
Mhm,
would be easy.
mhm.
You're going to know that the discomfort is going to be transient and that you're going to move on to something much more gratifying and growthful.
Yeah, yeah. That phrase, "when one door closes, another one opens," has always proven to be true. It is difficult, and is much of the people would repeat
Is
it.
it difficult, Sean, or do you think it's going to be difficult?
It may be difficult for everybody else. It's gonna be difficult for Wendy because she's not at the same place I'm at with guilt and shame. They're people that we care about, whose lives will change and would need to change fairly quickly, because we can't go like, we're giving you 6 months notice. It'd be like, yeah, this is what's happening, deal with it. um and the fact
Well,
that we haven't.
if the business has not been doing well, and all of your employees know the business is not doing well, then if they have not prepared themselves for any alternative, it's just plain stupidity.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting that you say that, because it's that's absolutely true. The other side of that is the fear that that's what they're thinking, and so they're always 1 second away from pulling the chute on their own, at which the house of cards falls anyway, right? So like that's why it needs to happen. is that it feels like there's a trigger and it's just waiting for whatever the trigger is. And I guess I'd rather pull it than something.
Well, you have to pull it because you're doing everyone a disservice keeping them
Mhm.
stuck.
Yeah.
It's not spiritually aligned for any of you.
Yeah.
And so you're all living a lie. And when you live a lie, it damages consciousness.
Yes.
And you know that from the 30th path.
Oh, okay. That's why that resonates. Mhm. I heard a phrase about a week ago, and it was like, you don't get the magic if you lie, or something like that. It was effectively, it was better stated than that. I've prided myself on trying to like telling the truth, but without a doubt, there were little lies because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings, or the little lies that I told myself, right? And so I don't do that anymore, or at least like if I catch myself doing, like, okay, I gotta, next time I'll do better. Um, and the magic's coming because there's not much that I'm like not really. In fact, there's almost nothing that I'm not direct in the face about, except for this pain that we're talking about. And little there's other ones like that. So this is a very useful conversation to just push through. Hmm. I wonder how many people are stuck like that. I think
Many,
most
many,
are.
many, many.
Yeah. Well,
I see the effects of it. Um, to some degree, what are you doing? My cat is looking for trouble. Um, I see people who I suspect are drinking because of the way they're gaining weight,
mm,
or they don't age well. Uh, they're not doing what they love and loving what they do with people they love and people who support them at
mm,
that level. And living that way, it's not a happy place to be.
yeah. Yeah, that was one thing where it's worse when I was drinking a lot. And I mean, I still have a drink, but it was 3.5, 4 years ago where it was just like it was full alcoholism. Uh,
Mm.
and I was having an internal dialogue with myself. And it was the first time I think I was having that dialogue where I'd be like talking to myself. So I don't mind sharing this because maybe other people need to hear it, but um, I would go through 2 bottles of scotch a week, and um, and I would hide one of them down the street at the bus stop garbage can because I knew Wendy would see the bottles, and so if I got rid of one of them, she wouldn't get upset. But I mean, it's just so ridiculous, at the time. But that's what I was doing. There was even one time where like she went to the washroom and I went and snuck a glass and then washed it out and put the glass in the dishwasher. Like it was like, what am I? And I know there's lots of people that have their tricks, but I was doing that for a while. And so I still drink but I have a very different relationship with it now. Um, and but I would wake up, I'd get drunk, and then the next day I'd have a hangover and um, yeah, I would just start all over. Like,
When you drank with the hangover, did it take the hangover away?
yeah, and I always want, like, there's this phrase, hair of the dog. Like if you have a drink the next day, hair of the dog is kind of like you just power through again. And I know people, men who talk about that all the time. Like I'll just have another drink. I don't know if it actually worked. I think you just started to get drunk again and it dulled the feelings, right?
Oh,
It didn't really make you feel.
I when I was first in graduate school, I went to a party and there was a vodka punch. I didn't know what I was doing. And by the end of the evening, I was drunk and sick. And I remember, throwing up and feeling awful. And then the next morning, feeling terrible and saying, I am never going to drink alcohol again.
Mhm.
That was it. I was done. One time I had the reaction and I don't drink any alcohol ever.
No, I don't think you're missing anything either.
I'm
Uh,
sure I'm not.
my son has no interest in having a drink. He's sipped something once in a while, but like he's 20 and just doesn't he's not interested. I, on the other hand, have probably almost killed myself 100 times, and for some reason go back for more. Um, again, differently now, but so I don't know
At
if that's
some
rebelling.
point with things like that, Sean, you have to say, this isn't good for me. I stop.
Mhm.
Cold turkey, I stop.
Hmm. That phrase "cold turkey," that was always something that didn't work for me, like that phrase. So now, now I'm gonna have to explore why that goes. That's so interesting. Hmm.
If you're doing something that's self-destructive and you keep doing it, would make sense to ask yourself why.
Mhm. Would that be, is that me trying to tamper my spirit? Is that me burying emotions? There's nothing mentally stimulating around any of that.
It may be simply doing something that you can do that you were told not to do. And so it gives you a sense of inner authority because you don't feel like you generally have it. Now, you said, in terms of your business, you have the authority to pull out of it and take care of yourself, but you're not allowing yourself to do it because other people are involved. So you have this history of making choices that aren't right for you because of the consequence on other people.
Mhm.
The
For sure.
reverse of that is to say, screw it, I'm going to do what I want to do because this doesn't affect anybody.
That last part's not true. It does affect people, right? Like, isn't that,
Not if they don't know.
oh, you're talking about like stopping drinking alcohol versus closing a business. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Yeah.
But even with the business, you're making an assumption that the other people are going to be hurt. And in truth, the other people would be helped
Mhm.
because they're in a losing proposition that's going nowhere.
Mhm. So we're all
And
being held back.
what?
We're all being held back at that point.
Well, so what are all of you doing? The people who are hanging on knowing that they shouldn't, and you keeping them going when they should be getting out looking for other things that would be better for them.
Totally. Someone actually did say to me, it's probably 3 years ago, but I was griping about how I kept, we spent a bunch of our savings, keeping people employed during COVID, and we struggled, and they left and took bigger salaries. And what the person said to me was something of, but you also took away from them the experience of having to find a new job, and or because maybe they've never actually had that wake up call themselves. So it's basically exactly what you're saying right now, except now it's 3 years later and this same situation's still in front of me. And so I don't know if it's guilt. It's not guilt. There's shame attached to it, but not a lot anymore. So now it's just like the energy, the work to deal with it. Like I put it off so long, it seems like it's a big job to close it down. And it's probably not. It's a bunch of stuff I just have to deal with. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And what would you do with the energy that frees up after it's dealt with?
I knew you'd ask that question. And maybe that's the part I'm wrestling with most. I'm not spending a lot of energy physically on it at all. It is all mental energy. That's it. I mean, it's not, I probably spend half an hour of actual time on the business a week. That's how little I'm involved in it. I don't even spend a lot of mental time on it, but I know Wendy does. And then Wendy's next to me in the house and is, you know, so ultimately the energy's there. We're both, she's a warrior. So yeah, there's a lot of energy going into it, but it is all unhelpful mental energy, non-constructive. That's for sure. Hmm.
Are there any people on the live feed?
Looks like 5. Someone
Anyone
named,
with questions?
there's no questions. We got hello from Latvia. From I don't know how to pronounce that name. Lelde, Lelda Design. And Raven wishes a happy new year as well. So yeah. Sorry to consume the whole time working through my stuff. I didn't think that's what I was gonna do today, but I appreciate it. We need to fix your camera angle as well. It's like your head is being cut off. There's I don't know if you can move closer or whatever, but
I don't know. I mean, on my screen, it looks fine.
yeah, I mean you look great. It's just usually you want your head to be like you're take up more of the screen. You're less than probably
Well,
20% of the screen, but
I think the problem is that I think my chair is up as high as it can go. Ooh,
apparently.
let's see.
Hmm.
That's as high as it can go.
Okay. Yeah, I spent a lot of time looking to video and they talk about framing the picture and framing what's going on. So, but cat's very active today too.
What?
Your cat is very active today too.
Very.
Okay, give me a second. I'll come up with something to change the topic and get it away from me and my moaning. Yeah, I'll stay on the same theme of you can manifest something in 3 months. And we talked a little bit about last week about, there's New Year's Day and the energy around, new me, new year, new me that comes with a lot of marketing and New Year's. And then Ra had suggested like the 41st codon. I really liked what you were saying about just if you were to like witness how the energy of the year goes on starting on your birthday. And for me, that's like 2 weeks after January 21st anyway. So it'll be an interesting window to watch for. The cosmic guidance today was suggesting to lay low. It does, I absolutely sense that there is changes coming and I just need to like piss or get off the pot kind of thing. And so energetically, it's interesting that that's what the book suggested today too. Um, I know you don't follow the transits and you don't live your life by astrology. which is just good straight advice anyways of just what feels good, I suppose, or where's your interest or inspiration in the moment. Um, on your birthday, do you reflect on the energy of the day, or it's just another day for you? Do
I celebrate my birthday
you
for a week,
celebrate your birthday?
at least a week. And I always have a cake and I always make a wish and I always have my favorite cake. Um, and a special birthday dinner. Um, I don't think we celebrate birthdays long enough, so I celebrate it for longer than one day.
Hmm. Yeah, I notice a lot of people will talk about their birthday week. That seems to, I notice that a lot more lately. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also really appreciate how much attention you put to getting us or me out of my head. And I get that's that mental world stuff, the human design stuff. So I do really appreciate that.
Well,
Um,
the difference between disowning the mental world and recognizing its value and its relationship to creative intelligence. And navigating the mental world, the waking world, is critical in being successful in your life and using it appropriately. Um, for example, over the last week, let's say, I was writing my 27th path, my 25th Path of Intelligence paper. I was reading books. I was reading notes I took in the past. I was looking things up. I was a researcher doing a project. And I could not do that without the mental world, without thinking, without tuning in spiritually to the truth versus what could be misinformation or not helpful to people. And ultimately, it comes down to spirit. I could not do my work if I wasn't being motivated by spirit to do it. To hold that mission that I was given as a priority and to be somewhat selfless about it. Um, it's if I think about how much time I'm spending doing it, or are there other things I could do I would like to do? Yes, but it's not my choice. My choice is to stay with spirit. And that carries a responsibility that could be dismissed. I could make excuses for dismissing it, or I take it on and I defer to a higher power. And that can be very tricky to integrate into your life. And the higher energies have to be the ones we surrender to, or we lose ourselves.
You've spoken a few times about having a direct experience with God, right? Like you know, point blank in your face said, this is what you're going to do, or this is what I'm going to do, or however that happened for you. I can't say I've ever had that, but I feel like I'm always on the edges of that. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't have
I think you're
that
afraid of it,
clarity.
Sean.
Afraid of it.
Mhm.
Okay, let's explore that because I agree with you, but I don't know what that means.
I mean, if you let that energy go up your spine, your life's going to change.
Mhm. So what does that mean? Does that mean I all of a sudden am absolutely fierce in my convictions of what I want to do, and I'll be too extra and repelled, and there'll be casualties of
I don't
collateral
know what it means.
damage? Okay.
Um, I know that each time I had a real Kundalini experience, um, and I'm not talking about sitting and it being, you can do this or you can do that. Um, when you have an experience like that, it's so overwhelming and so profound that you're never the same. I had an experience one day. I was using an Aurosoma bottle and clearing my aura. And all of a sudden, Jesus was there, full face, saying to me, I am the gate, follow me. Just like that. His face was right there above me. I was in awe. It was unexpected, unplanned, and it changed my life. And those experiences change your life. You're going in one direction, and then suddenly something else comes in.
Mm.
I mean, I've shared the experience I had in October of 22 when the voice said to me, you have the four worlds layout. You know what you have, you know how to read it, make it public. I didn't have to listen, but listening and taking that on was huge.
Hmm. I wonder, I just haven't had experiences like that. What I did have, and I know that you don't amplify things with plant medicine or anything like that, but I had a mushroom trip, and I haven't done a macro mushroom trip in the last 2 years more than twice. But when I did 3 months ago, and it was the one I think I told you about, where like my eyes were quite literally like window washers for an hour and a half, and it was just like they were. It was like I was erasing all the negative things I had seen. It was kind of in my like, but it was my eyes were more relaxed afterwards. Something happened physically, but I had this sense that like I was important, or that I was like I honestly I thought I was Jesus. You know, there was that, and that was really unsettling because to me it's a state of mind, Christ consciousness, right? Um, And then you hear people having psychosis and, just imagining like they just go nuts. But at the time, the sense wasn't, I had no desire to have people follow me, I had no desire to, I had no details around it. It was just like I'm missing something, or I'm underperforming. I'm miss yeah, I'm I don't know if it was wasting time. It wasn't even that.
You're not anchored in what you love and the life you love.
Curiously, I feel like I'm getting closer.
Good.
So maybe that's part of the problem is I keep sort of thinking there needs to be a single catalyst or, you know, hmm,
You have to give up your business that is not profitable in order to move forward.
yeah, yeah, that's,
I mean, you can't hold on to the past and move into the future at the same time.
yeah,
They're incompatible.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's more of a burden than I'm even um,
Well,
recognizing.
you're trying to hold on to the past and move into your future, and you can't do it.
Mhm. Yep. Okay, well, we don't have any questions. I need to let that simmer for a bit. I want to talk about the body graph, because we talked about this a few times. And the one thing that I keep meaning to do, and I haven't done, is I want to um, sketch out a body graph on a canvas, but I want to mirror it. So the heart is on, like when I'm looking at it, because I'm not looking at it as an analyst, I'm looking at myself in the mirror.
Mhm.
And I just keep running this scenario in my head, but I haven't done it yet. I then want to take the colors for the four worlds and for each gate, paint it. And I also don't want to have hard lines, like say the 35 to 36. I don't want a line that cuts it off because it's not an on or off, it's an energy, it's a nuance.
Mhm.
And so to me, I think there's some magic in seeing the two worlds or colors flow into each other as well, because they're going to meet in the middle. And if it was blue and yellow, it would be green. Um, so there's some sort of magic to that. I don't know if I have a question other than I'm actually one of the questions would be in the mental world, there's the red and the black in like as far as the lines and colors. But if I were to draw the mental world on a canvas using the mental world color, would I then would whether if it shows up in the mental world body graph, it's just one color, or is there still nuance to the red and black then at that point?
Colors are an artifact.
Okay. So it's
So,
not the voice never said to do red and black.
no, the
Okay.
voice spent 5 days giving Ra the proportions of the body graph.
Hmm.
And mine is the only body graph, mine and Eric's are the only ones that are accurate.
Hmm. So when you say
Uh,
proportions, you mean the actual angles of the triangles and right?
exact,
Symmetric?
it was exact.
Hmm.
And it's sacred geometry, so it communicates something. Um, the red and the black were Ra's, you know, way of describing the design and the personality.
Okay. So
It
that
could be
wasn't
all one
that part.
color.
Hmm.
Um, it's not really unconscious and conscious. I didn't understand the unconscious at all. Um, I have some images of the body graph where I've colored it with the astrological colors.
Mhm.
Um, so, I don't pay that much attention to the body graph in my life. Um, I think it's really interesting intellectually, but I don't pay attention to it. It's a waste of time. You get a reading and you take it in and you know who you are and it validates who you are, and then you go and you live your life. And putting too much emphasis on, is it this, is it that, is it affecting me this way or that way, you're going to make yourself crazy.
Mhm.
It's like psychobabble. What for?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, even as you said that, like I've spent 3.5 years trying to reverse engineer what people have told me and trying to make sense of what was true and what isn't. And then I talked to you and they're like, oh, the red and black was an artifact. Whereas like I always understood that was partly channeled. So
Ra didn't have that much channeled.
mhm.
He sat down with Jurgen and with Zeno and Chaitanya, and they came up with something they thought could sell. That's the bottom line.
Mhm.
And when I look at some of the people doing human design and selling reports, canned reports, whether it's, there are astrology reports that people can get from the computer programs, there are reports from the human design community. So much of it is AI that doesn't look at the person. What does it mean for this person to have this sign in this gate?
Mhm.
And it's not the same for everyone. So I'd say have a reading and let it go.
Yeah. It's interesting to use the word AI because that's common language in the last couple of years. But human design's been going on for a while. But I was going to replace that word with speculative. It's someone else's interpretation of your energy. And that's what AI does quite a bit too. I was having a conversation with Topher yesterday. We were talking about AI. And I'd written a little paragraph that I was going to send to someone, and I gave it to ChatGPT and said, "Can you tie this up for me? It doesn't feel quite right." And so it gave me back something, and it was good. There's even parts of it I liked better, but there were elements of it that was just like, wow, it sounds like I'm wearing pom poms and I'm a cheerleader, and it doesn't feel legit. So then I asked it like, so why did you change? Like, what did you change, or why did you change it the way you changed it? What was wrong with it? And it actually came back and said, I liked what you put, but because you asked me to change it, I assumed that you thought there was something wrong with it, so I made something up. I just thought like it was quite refreshing for AI to basically say like there was nothing wrong with it, dude. You should have just sent it the way it.
I've
So
tried using AI for some of what I write, to get input like research, and more often than not, it's wrong.
mhm.
And if I didn't know my work, I would be putting out misinformation.
Yeah, you could be led astray very easily. I do find it useful for like in I have conversations with it where I'm trying to understand something and I get it to ask me questions, and then it becomes like a dialogue. Because it does have access to knowledge that I like, it would take me forever to go and compile. So it's great for Google. Like I don't Google anymore. I use ChatGPT to find a product because I give it very clear requirements, and I mean most times it hits it out of the park because it just has access to stuff so quickly that I can't find it. But yeah.
I think you should take a week and not read anything
Mm,
and not research anything and just be with yourself
mm,
without input from outside. No YouTube, no ChatGPT. Be a person
mm,
with no technology and see what changes for you.
mm. Yeah, it sounds lovely and agonizing at the same time, but very helpful. Hmm. Hmm.
Sammy's coming.
Uh, Actually, we have a comment here because we were talking about Kundalini earlier. Elena Eli. Maybe I'll put this on the screen because I can. I had two direct experiences with God's energy of love, then the Kundalini awakening. The energy almost killed me. I was paralyzed in the material world for 2 years. Happy New Year. How does one become paralyzed in the material world? Although I think I know what she means, actually. Like frozen or stuck. Hmm.
When you need to know what you're doing, when you have experiences, including you've done mushrooms, you've mentioned doing mushrooms. Disclaimer, I've never done any psychedelics. I don't want to do psychedelics. Um, I remember saying to a classmate of mine when I was in graduate school, and we shared an office as research associates. And he said to me one day, I think I'm going to try LSD. And I looked at him and I said, you know, Rick, I love my consciousness just the way it is. Why would I mess with it? People messing with a consciousness can get into trouble if they're not ready.
Hmm.
And we live in four worlds. You don't want to unbalance yourself with the wrong thing. So your mind and your consciousness is to be respected above all else.
Yeah,
And
I had. Oh,
you
go ahead.
want to take care of it.
Hmm. Luckily, I had some good advice early on and asked, like I was terrified to even try it in the beginning. And so there's a couple of phrases that were given to me right in the beginning. One was called hold the gold. And the idea is like when you have this experience, don't do anything for like a month, like basically a lunar cycle. And it was because there's going to be a whole bunch of things that come to mind, and you're going to want to just get on it. And those around you are not going to be ready for it, and there'll be consequences. So luckily, I got that advice early. I know far too many people and it's become trendy to just go to somewhere and do an ayahuasca retreat, and then you come back and you blow up your life. So like it's happening in a lot of places. My approach has been a little more slow and steady, but I agree with you. Like it completely changes. It can completely change your perspective on things, and it can be disruptive for sure. So yeah, a week alone. I'd love
Not
to,
alone.
or no, but a week without uh just. Would you say distraction or just information overload? I guess.
Without input that does not belong to you.
Mhm.
Be self-sufficient within yourself for a week, only talking to the higher self, not looking for mental world advice, emotional advice, spiritual advice, focusing on what Sean knows and what Sean's higher self knows.
Yeah. I was reminded yesterday at pickleball. I put my foot up. It was between games. I went outside to get some fresh air. And I put my foot up almost like I was a ballerina, like where you put your leg up on the
On a
pole
bar,
and I was stretching. And then I started remembering the questions that you've asked a bunch of times with the clean language. Like, am I facing in the right direction? Am I at the right height? I think
height,
was one. Yeah.
perspective.
And the right perspective. And all of a sudden I was like doing that. And all the answers were yes. Like everything was yes. And that was gratifying, satisfying, rewarding. I don't know what the right word is, but like all of a sudden it was like nothing else mattered. It was just I felt good about what I was doing and where I was at. Um, it was pretty peaceful for about 90 seconds.
Well, maybe next time it'll be 90 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. There's just so much data everywhere, like just information coming at me, whether it's
It doesn't have to come at you, Sean.
mhm,
Take a break from it.
mhm.
Just be with Sean for a while.
That guy's nuts.
Yeah, he is. So,
Yeah. Mm,
who isn't nuts?
mm, mm, mm. That's a good question. Yeah, who isn't nuts? Um, you mentioned Elon earlier, and he's been a big source of inspiration for me, or at least how he goes about things, right? Um, he was actually the reason I got into psychedelics. I can remember seeing a video by a fellow that's just a huge fan of what Tesla does. He's a big Tesla advocate. And he's done like, I think 1,000 videos since then. He's this really annoying, abrasive, but intelligent Australian that lives in Argentina. But anyways, his very first video, he basically said, I don't think there's any way that Elon doesn't do psychedelics because he's able to withstand the criticism of putting himself out there and being the like being different, right? And just having that kind of drive. And that was kind of what got me interested in that. It still took 2 years before
That,
I
that Yvonne needs psychedelics.
no, but I mean for sure he has. He's talked about it even. And he grew up in Silicon Valley, or not grew up, but like he was based there. And so I think there was a lot of that going on. There is something about expansive thinking that comes with, or potential for some people to have expansive thinking in psychedelics. So I mean that's how I got into it. But that it was more that he was working on something bigger than himself. Like sure, he's I think still the richest person in the world. But from what I can tell, he doesn't own a home anymore. He had 6 of them in California, and it was so that he had 5 homes around his main one so that people couldn't get to his house. And then I think he sold all of them 3 years ago. He called them attack vectors. So like he was tired of people saying he has 6 homes. So he was like, well, I'll take away that criticism and have none. And he was already sleeping on the floor in a at SpaceX and stuff anyways. And I'm sure he sleeps in a fine hotel whenever he feels like it. He's got the means. So, but it was this idea that he was building something uh so beyond, like he wasn't going to see the day that of the success he really wanted. Like he really wants to put a million, or not put, he wants to prove that you could have 1 million people on Mars. And he wants to do it in 100 years. And that's why they're building these giant uh, starships where they can take 100 people at a time. And they want to turn SpaceX into the FedEx of space. It's the idea is that just one after another, these rockets are going to go to Mars and we're going to get it done one way or another. But what's amazing is all the things that have been built because of that crazy mission, right? Like he's changed the space game. He's made NASA look like a bunch of bumbling idiots, you know,
Which they are.
or they are. And he's built an internet system in space that is paying for it. But his intention with that is that they need a telecom communication system on Mars. You're not going to be putting up towers, so learn how to do Starlink here so that you can mimic it over there. Like it really is that next level thinking, right? And then I watch people criticize about like where he could be putting his money or where he could be putting his energy, right? And it's crazy. And some people just dislike him because he's working with Trump or, you know, and so it's just they immediately tune out all the other things that the impact he's had. It's insanity. So, anyways, all that to say, I've got big ideas, but and he's also that was the other thing that that's probably what got me into design a bit, or at least what hooked me is that I remember looking at his body graph and being like, what has he got that I don't have? And I've long since stopped that game. Um, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the first ones I looked at. Was like, what, you know, what, how, like it's this need to deconstruct it. But at the end of the day, it's just he's he's just doing him. So yeah. Hmm.
His mother encouraged him
Mhm.
and recognized that he wasn't regular
Mhm.
and didn't make him regular and sent him to his father's where he could read the Encyclopedia Britannica. So he's just a free spirit. We're all free spirits if we allow ourselves to be.
Yeah, you said we're spiritual beings pretending not to be.
Mhm.
And that I've been like paying attention to that. So,
Osho said that.
oh, did he? Okay.
He said, the goose is out. You're all Buddhas pretending not to be.
The goose is out?
Mhm. That was the name of the series.
Okay.
Every month, Osho did a lecture. One month it was in Hindi, and one month it was in English. And then all of the lectures ran for about an hour and a half. And then they'd be published and recorded. And one series was The Goose is Out. When Marvin and I were in India, he was working on The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Hmm.
One day was questions and answers, and one day was lecture.
Remember him saying he figured he was 100 years ahead of his time. Like even trying to build these communities where everybody got involved with, you know, it wasn't someone's job to be the lawyer. It was more like the field needs taken care of. Someone needs to dig a hole. Like it sounded like there was a sense of community there for
No,
a bit. It really wasn't like that.
it was um, the ashram. I love Osho. he was Bhagwan when I was there. We share the same birthday, different year. Um, the ashram was on an unethical free-for-all.
When you say Osho,
And
you mean in India or in Oregon or both?
in India, it was an unethical free-for-all.
Hmm.
And in Oregon, it was evil, plain and simple evil.
Hmm.
And when I was in India and left, well, 6 months after we left, we burned everything. Um, because it was very clear that Osho was not speaking the truth honorably. Um, when we were in India, it was about to turn. The people in the office were not good people, and some of the leaders of the groups were unethical, very unethical, taking advantage of the women, fucking with them when they were vulnerable, um, using drugs, using other things. Um, it was not the I knew when I was there that the people in the core office, Sheila and what was her name? Sheila was there. Lakshmi was there. Um, I couldn't walk into that office and feel okay.
Sorry, someone's at the door, and I really want to hear what you're saying. Can I just come back in a second? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
weird to do that on a podcast, but they won't go away. Well, and that's why they're persistent. This is our cat's ashes that was just delivered to our house.
Oh,
We had to put down one of our cats last week. Or not,
oh,
I don't like the word put down, but she was suffering, so. Ooh, sorry, you were talking about Osho. Hmm, yeah. So,
the Osho became a cult leader. The human design community is becoming a cult.
yeah,
And
I agree.
that's scary. You froze. Now you're not frozen.
Yeah, I don't know if one of us froze, but I think you're back. No, still bad internet. Okay, I think we're back.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cult is it's a word that a lot of people will have a hard time with because nobody wants to be in a cult. But it's got cultish elements for sure. um, yeah, I have so many questions. I am I'm I'm curious, like when you were in India, you were meeting Osho. It sounds like you weren't there very long and picked up on that things weren't as healthy as others would have described it, I guess. Was it instantaneous? Like how long were you there?
I was there for 5 weeks.
5 weeks. And so why did you stay 5 weeks? Were you getting a
Because
sense
I met
of?
Martha.
Okay, well, that's good enough. That makes sense. And you're like, okay, let's get out of here. Um, it's fascinating. I love how simple you break things down. It's actually kind of, yeah, I just love it.
What?
Well, it's just like it's interesting, but it's like we're here in the same time, but you're from a simpler time. Like it, and I mean that with admiration and respect, not like there was less thinking then. It's just like direct and pure and or clean and yeah, no bullshit. So that's why,
There was always bullshit.
yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Well, oh, actually, there was a question. Kristen asked, "How long have you been in India with Marvin?" But you just answered that. So 5 weeks. Um,
And we've been together for 46 and a half years.
yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. Well, I think we should tap out there.
I stopped.
Do you
Yeah,
want to spend a couple minutes and work on that technical stuff? Do you have energy for that today, or
sure.
okay? I gotta hit the road in about 20 minutes. So why don't we tie this one off and then hang out there, hang around a bit longer. Let me end the feed.